Star Citizen PTU documentary. Chapter 1, The Laboratory Before the Storm. Somewhere in the quiet hours before a patch goes live, the universe of Star Citizen behaves like a laboratory just before a strange experiment begins. Not a calm laboratory, more like one where every scientist is holding a wrench, someone is welding a reactor in the corner, and somebody else has accidentally launched a cargo crate into orbit. And sitting at the center of it all is the PTU. The public test universe is the place where chaos is invited on purpose. It is the testing ground where mechanics are pushed until they break, ships explode in strange ways, and players become explorers not of space, but of systems. Every switch flipped, every shield drained, every weapon fired is data for the developers at Cloud Imperium Games. But this particular PTU cycle is not a small update. It is the beginning of something much larger. A patch that quietly changes the bones of the game. The patch that changes the shape of the universe. Recent PTU builds leading toward the next major alpha release introduce several foundational systems that reshape how players interact with the world. Among them are early crafting systems, blueprint rewards for missions, component balance changes including shields and armor, expanded scanning and detection systems, engineering improvements, inventory and interaction reworks, new missions tied to industrial gameplay, early fabrication tools. These systems are not cosmetic additions. They are the start of player manufacturing and long-term progression, which will eventually allow players to produce equipment, repair gear, and even fabricate components from resources gathered in the universe. The PTU patch therefore acts like a prototype factory floor. Machines are switched on. The universe begins to manufacture things. A universe that is slowly becoming physical. For many years, the development philosophy of Star Citizen has followed a simple rule. Nothing should be abstract if it can become physical. Cargo is not just numbers in an inventory. It is boxes. Fuel is not simply a statistic. It exists as a resource that must be transported, refined, and stored. This PTU continues that philosophy. The new fabrication technology preview introduces the earliest stage of crafting where players can use blueprints and resources to create items. These items initially focus on FPS gear and components, but the technology is designed to scale to far larger constructions in the future. Eventually, this system will connect to mining, salvage, trading, and even base building. The dream is simple. Everything in the universe comes from somewhere. The blueprint economy. Crafting begins with a simple object, the blueprint. Blueprints are essentially recipes that allow players to manufacture equipment if they possess the necessary materials and fabrication equipment. In the earliest PTU builds, these blueprints can appear as mission rewards, introducing a new type of progression. Instead of merely receiving money, players may receive the knowledge required to build something themselves. This small change transforms how missions function. A mission may now reward credits, reputation, resources, manufacturing knowledge, which means a player could slowly unlock the ability to produce increasingly advanced gear. The economy begins to grow roots. The fabrication machine. At the heart of the system is the fabrication device. These machines act as the manufacturing units of the future economy. Early prototypes allow players to craft smaller items such as weapons or equipment, but the system is built with a much larger future in mind. One of the fascinating design elements is that fabrication devices may exist in several environments: stations, player hangars, industrial facilities, ships equipped with manufacturing capability. Which leads to a curious engineering puzzle. Where should the machine go? Inside a ship, space is always limited, and every cubic meter has a purpose. The cargo grid problem. Cargo grids are the lifeblood of logistics. Every crate, component, and supply box must fit somewhere, but fabrication machines take space. That creates a dilemma. If a crafting device occupies a cargo grid location, that space can no longer transport cargo, and cargo is profit. For a ship like the Polaris, which already balances cargo capacity with operational needs, placing a fabrication unit on the grid could reduce the ship's ability to carry valuable materials or mission equipment. This is why many players experimenting with the system are exploring alternative placement strategies. A fabrication device might be installed in a maintenance room, engineering bay, or other internal compartment, rather than occupying cargo capacity. In a universe where logistics matter, space is currency. The role of PTU experimenters. This is where the strange laboratory nature of the PTU becomes important. Every player inside the test universe becomes something like a field scientist. Ships are dismantled, systems are tested, modules are moved. Players attempt bizarre combinations that developers may not even expect. Someone somewhere will attempt to fit a fabrication unit into a ship that was never meant to hold one. And sometimes those experiments reveal new gameplay possibilities. A personal testing environment. While the PTU evolves, another laboratory exists outside the game, the player's computer. A patch of this scale does not simply introduce content, it introduces complexity, new physics systems, inventory logic, engineering interactions. And when those systems collide inside a server simulation containing dozens of players and thousands of objects, performance becomes delicate, which is why some players prepare their systems carefully before a major patch. The goal is simple. When the universe updates, the machine must not crash. Technologies such as frame scaling and GPU optimization can be used to maintain visual fidelity while keeping performance stable. In a sense, the PC itself becomes part of the experiment, a control panel connected to the universe. The shadow of death. Hovering quietly behind all of these systems is a concept that has haunted the game for years. Death of a spaceman. The long-term mortality system designed for Star Citizen means that characters will not simply respawn forever without consequence. Over time, repeated deaths will gradually lead to the permanent loss of a character lineage. 30 chapters of exploration into that system already exist within ongoing documentation, but the connection between that mechanic and the new PTU systems is becoming clearer. Crafting, repair, engineering. All of these mechanics support a universe where survival matters, because when death has consequences, preparation becomes everything. Weapons must be maintained, ships must be repaired, equipment must be replaced. And suddenly crafting is not just a feature, it is survival. The quiet beginning. For now, the PTU does not yet reveal its full potential. Many systems are still prototypes. Numbers change, balance shifts, weapons are adjusted, shields are recalculated. But beneath those fluctuations lies a clear direction. The universe is slowly transforming from a collection of missions into a living industrial ecosystem, a place where players mine materials, salvage wreckage, manufacture equipment, and transport goods across star systems. The PTU is the first spark of that machine, a workshop where the future is assembled piece by piece, and somewhere in that workshop, someone is waiting patiently for the next experiment, watching the systems, testing the limits, waiting to see what happens when the next chapter begins. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. The Shield Renaissance. Chapter 2. The Shield Renaissance. If ships in Star Citizen were medieval knights, shields would be the armor strapped to their chests. Without them, Even the most magnificent vessel becomes little more than a floating target practice dummy. For many years, shields in the universe of Star Citizen worked in a relatively simple manner. They absorbed damage until depleted, then slowly regenerated. This system worked, but it lacked depth. Combat was often decided by brute force rather than by strategy. The PTU patch changes that relationship. It does not merely tweak shield numbers, it reshapes how defensive technology behaves across the battlefield. The role of shields in a living combat system. Ships in Star Citizen exist within a layered defense model. Each vessel relies on three main defensive elements: shields, armor, structural hit points. Shields absorb incoming energy and ballistic fire first. Armor then mitigates what penetrates the shield. Finally, structural hit points represent the physical integrity of the ship itself. In earlier builds of the game, shields dominated the equation. A ship with strong shields could survive prolonged combat regardless of armor strength. But the new PTU build begins adjusting this balance. Shields remain powerful, but they are no longer the sole protector of a ship. Instead, they are becoming part of a more complex defensive ecosystem. Shield faces and directional protection. One of the long-standing systems in Star Citizen is the concept of shield faces. Ships are not surrounded by one uniform shield bubble. Instead, their shields are divided into directional quadrants. Typically, these are front, rear, left, right. Damage applied to one side of the ship weakens that particular shield face rather than the entire system. This mechanic allows skilled pilots to rotate their ships during combat to protect weakened shield zones. The PTU adjustments refine how these shield faces behave. Regeneration rates, capacity distribution, and damage absorption have been carefully recalibrated. The intention is to make positioning in combat far more meaningful. A pilot who manages shield exposure intelligently can survive encounters that would otherwise destroy their ship. Combat becomes a dance. Rotate, redirect, recharge, strike. Engineering and shield control. Another feature slowly emerging through PTU testing is the deeper integration between shields and ship engineering systems. Eventually, players will gain the ability to manage power distribution, component damage, and shield modulation from engineering stations. The shield generator itself becomes a physical component inside the ship. This means it can be damaged, repaired, replaced, overloaded. When shields fail in the future, the reason may not simply be because the enemy fired enough bullets. It could be because a component inside the ship has malfunctioned. Engineering gameplay transforms combat into something far more layered. A battle might involve pilots, turret gunners, and an engineer racing through corridors to repair a failing shield generator. The balance between military and civilian components. The PTU also revisits component classifications. In Star Citizen, components are divided into several major categories: civilian, industrial, military, stealth, competition. Each class of component has different advantages and disadvantages. Military shield generators often provide strong durability, but